Let me have your attention, please, and we'll get the program started. This morning is sort of a wrap-up session. I would, however, like to introduce one person who has joined us, who regrettably had to go to Washington on a mission, but even though he came back last night, he's able to be here this morning, and that's Dr. Neil Lane, very distinguished faculty member, former head of the National Science Foundation, and advisor to the president, and is an advisor to the president still. He's the Malcolm Gillis chair, has the Malcolm Gillis chair at Rice University, and is a professor of physics in the university. He's had a long-standing interest in space research, and he's been a strong supporter of the space biomedical research activities. I want to ask you, if you would, to take a few minutes to fill out this form. We left them at your seats at one time. There are some other. This is just it's just to help us think about the future. And there are several of the forms on the table over here by the door. So we would like to encourage your completing them, and just leave them on the table here or leave them on the table over there, and we'll pick them up later. At this time, Dr. Jeffrey Sutton, who's the director of the National Space Biomedical Research Institute, is going to present a summary of challenges, goals, priorities, suggestions for cooperation, coordination, collaboration, those three of those 4 C's we talked about on the first day, and and some suggestions about methods for future communication and next steps. And it's really a pleasure indeed to introduce Jeff.
Well, thank you, Dr. Alford and Professor Lane and distinguished colleagues. I want to thank everyone for their participation in this summit, and I've certainly found it to be very productive and enjoyable. And I want to thank the organizers and also the support staff and the interpreters, who I think have all done an absolutely wonderful job with this summit. I've been assigned a task this morning which unfortunately I believe I'm going to fall short on. The task is to summarize the key elements that Dr. Alford talked about. I found the conference so rich, so full of information, so full of lively exchanges, that I really don't think there's any conceivable way that at least I could really capture or do justice to what's transpired here. It's just been absolutely wonderful. Nevertheless, I will try my best, and if I misrepresent something, please let me know so that it can be corrected. A good place to start is with the purpose of this summit. The purpose of the summit has been to bring together the leading physicians and space biomedical scientists from the spacefaring nations for high-level discussions of the medical and biomedical challenges astronauts and cosmonauts experience in long-duration flight. And I think with confidence we can say that the purpose, the objective of this summit has clearly been achieved. The invited nations have shown great interest, as Dr. Alford and Mr. Abbey have conveyed. I think that it's extremely promising as to what took place here. So, given the topics of this talk that are outlined here, I'm going to go through each heading in turn and capture some of the common themes that I believe were presented. And there is obviously some overlap, and the list is going to be incomplete. But we'll address some of the main issues. So let's start with challenges. I think that one of the common themes that was conveyed by the panelists in particular, but by many folks, is that spaceflight clearly is inherently risky. There's the risks that are associated with the environment, of training and ground operations, of vehicle events, both intravehicular and extravehicular. There are hazards and risks, and this poses a significant challenge to the tasks that we have before us. A common theme also was the consideration, or perhaps stated even a relative lack of consideration of the human factors, the countermeasures and medical issues as part of the vehicle design and development, both for current and next generation vehicles. The themes, however, of human factors, countermeasures, and medical issues are extremely important and were reiterated in very eloquent ways by many of the individuals. Challenge that we face are the different responses that individuals have to the space environment, their susceptibility to risks, and we also face challenges clearly with the international nature. Of course, the international nature also poses great opportunities for shared resources. There are other challenges that we face in coming to a consensus on an international way about acceptable levels of care. Cultural and ethical issues play in, economic and legal issues. There was some discussion of space law. And then there was considerable discussion around self-created barriers that we as nations and societies impose for a variety of reasons that can stand in the way of exchanging information in scientific collaboration. Moving on to goals, I think that there's clearly a goal from the participants of this summit to really move forward to enhance and sustain international collaboration in space medicine. There is a growing openness and willingness to share data, to advance knowledge, develop countermeasures, and provide high-level medical support to the crews. I believe that it's a goal of the summit and of the participants to integrate studies and data collection, and to simplify data collection, to perform studies that are important scientifically and also operationally needed and which are operationally feasible. I think that there's another point regarding the individualization of health maintenance and medical care, and certainly this is an area that is going to become more important as we go forward. One of the goals that the community voiced was the objective to upgrade medical technologies and improve the functionality of humans. And in developing new technologies, to also foster the concept of autonomy in medical care. The International Space Station, of course, is a precious international resource and a proof of the ways in which collaboration can lead to positive results. And this is a wonderful laboratory, as we all know, to validate flight-ready science and enable technologies. And I think that one of the goals that was voiced was the desire to work together to bring forward testing and evaluation of new technologies and the testing of ideas and moving through a pipeline from research and development towards operations. One of the goals that came up also had to do with the desire to increase the strength of partnerships and commercialization efforts. And I think that with respect to education and outreach, we did not talk much about the next generation and inspiring efforts, but there was a recurrent theme and I think a goal and a desire to educate policymakers and other stakeholders as to the value and the progress and the merit of the activity with respect to space medicine that many space and all spacefaring nations will eventually have to address. So what about priorities? I have to admit that priorities was a tough one because people have so many good ideas and concepts that when I looked at the notes that not only I was taking but the notes that others were taking, they were just filled with all sorts of great science that needs to be done, great applied medical research. Given that there are a few priorities, of course, right at the very top, there is the priority of safety and the priority of mission success, that our work and efforts really have to go towards ensuring to the best possible way that we can a success of the mission, again, given the fact that we're faced with a challenge that spaceflight is inherently risky. There was a consistent theme priority that was voiced by the crews concerning the reliability of hardware. And I've just put down, obviously, life support and countermeasures, but there were other aspects of hardware reliability that factor in here as well. Radiation protection and countermeasures, very important, clear priority. There was a recurrent theme of maintaining behavioral health and performance. Some psychosocial issues were also addressed in that. Very importantly, countermeasures to improve vestibular and sensory motor impairment. Both of the panels yesterday, especially the panel on crew recovery, talked a lot about the priority and need for countermeasures in this area. Along with the panels yesterday, the panels the day before that was headed by Dr. Jeannie Becker and also by Kathy Larini, looking at broad spectrum of countermeasures. Dr. Kozlovskaya also played a leading role in those panel discussions, countermeasures for bone and muscle impairment, and other systems as well. So I don't mean here to purposely exclude other systems, but these are the systems that people repeatedly refer to. Another priority has to do with determination of an acceptable level of risk. This is an international issue, and it clearly is difficult to come to consensus even within one nation, let alone across nations. And in a similar way, there was a priority to establish international standards and requirements for medical support and the level of care. And data was a very important topic, a priority area that came up, not only with sharing and mining of data, but also cataloging the data that already exists and continues to be acquired. What about suggestions for cooperation, coordination, and collaboration? It's important to note, and there's such a wonderful legacy in spaceflight to recognize, of course, that there is a precedence and that we can learn a lot from the models that have been successful. Those models, as was discussed, that deal with a transition from essentially what was a competitive environment to one of cooperation to true collaboration. And I've listed a number of the of examples in this regard. I think that with respect to the ISS program, I've only put down 2 points, but there are other points that are clearly contained within the program. I just wanted to make it relatively concrete. I think that the ATOM project, dealing with the application of ultrasound on board, that has been a multinational and a very successful and productive activity, is a concrete science example. And then there are a variety of management boards that are involved with the running of the ISS program, and that they, in themselves, are separate but nevertheless linked to the international medical boards, the Multilateral Medical Operations Panel, again, 5 partners that are engaged: the U.S., the RSA, JAXA, ESA, and the Canadian Space Agency, the Multilateral Space Medicine Board, and the Multilateral Medical Policy Board. I think with respect to ground-based projects, so they're the flight projects, flight programs rather, regarding ground-based projects, there again is a number of very successful multinational activities that have taken place that there are lessons to be learned. Some of these have been highly successful in bed rest, for example, and some activities in artificial gravity. Now, looking forward from today onwards, and now looking at what are opportunities with respect to cooperation, coordination, and collaboration. Well, I think in the flight area in ISS, there are projects that following through with the ultrasound example, though clearly there are many, many other examples. The project that is going to take very promising demonstration proof of principle to actual anatomical cataloging of the physiological adaptations to space based on an atlas of ultrasound data. There was mention of the expansion of the ISS medical project for serial in-flight measures. And there was also discussion of the opportunities that rest with crews returning from space. For example, those crews that have been aboard the ISS for 6 months undergoing a Mars simulation, and also the opportunity to provide simulations and scenarios for support of various procedures under duress. Analog environments and studies was a very common theme. I think it's an area of great opportunity. Analogs afford lower cost relative to the mission. They can be used to overcome unforeseen problems. And there was recurrent discussions, I think very interesting ones, around various analog environments such as Antarctica and also submarine experiences and several others. I think there are opportunities for international collaboration on research on biomarkers to tailor individual countermeasures. Again, I wanted to emphasize a point that was brought up, I believe, by Dr. Dinges, that the rationale behind this is not for select in or out, but rather to really address the best possible countermeasures for an individual. There are opportunities for collaboration among various science institutes, for example, the NSBRI and IBMP, and to enhance and support medical capabilities, contingency protocols, and training. A few other opportunities: the standardization of medical requirements across nations, the integration of medical certification and treatment, building on the legacy of the Extended Duration Orbital Medical Project to the ISS. MP is the Lunar Medical Project that affords an opportunity as it begins to be developed and expanded to involve international opportunities and collaboration, and data sharing, again, wonderful opportunities in that regard. With respect to the topic of methods for future communication, there are so many wonderful ways to communicate so rapidly these days. Sometimes we almost wish that we didn't have as many ways to communicate. I didn't really have a lot to say here, other than the fact that, clearly there is methods that are electronic and hard copy distributions, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. we have an opportunity, if we wish, to establish a website to hold further meetings, whether they be self-contained meetings such as this one, or satellite meetings for established associations such as Aerospace Medical Association, and our imagination can take us wherever it is that we wish to go with respect to moving forward as a community. What about next steps? I've listed a few, and then I thought that what I would do is just really open it up, because the next steps rest with all of us. I think that the summit has been extremely successful, and that we should build upon the success. As I said at the outset, I believe, and everyone that I talk to, not just in words, but on their facial expression and by their enthusiasm. I know it's hard to be enthusiastic early on a Sunday morning, but I think that there was really some very lively exchange, and you just, it's so obvious that, to me at any rate, that really the expectations in a lot of ways were exceeded. So I think we should build upon the meeting success. As Dr. Alford mentioned, there are feedback forms, and I think that the organizers will have a look at that and test the veracity of the statement that I just made. The meeting has been, you have been informed of previously, is being recorded, and hence there will be summit proceedings that will be prepared, and so there will be a record. And I think that what we need to do is to, in a lot of ways, continue what we are doing. There's a wonderful momentum. It's driven by the science, by the medicine, by the engineering, by our passion, fundamentally, to go forward and explore and work together. And there are already excellent multinational projects and various processes that are in place, and I think the next steps are logical next steps to continue on with what works well and to continue to improve upon that. I think that it's important to establish multinational points of contact for each of the nations that is participating in this activity, and then finally, really other steps. I've talked to a number of folks. A lot of different ideas. I didn't put them down here, but I think it'll come up in the discussion. And the final slide is just, I think, really captures some of the spirit of what went on here today and in the previous 2 days, and that is that there is a wonderful group of leaders from across nations who share inordinate experience and perspective and talent and a desire to go forward in a productive way, not only for our nations, but really for all of humanity. And with those comments, I did my best to summarize what was, a very interesting and incredibly thought-provoking summit. And again, I know that I fell short, but I tried, and I certainly am willing to be criticized for the effort. But I hope also to, stimulate some discussion of the summit that belongs to all of us. So thank you very much. Okay. I think Dr. Longenecker has a comment here. Yes.
Jeff, first of all, I commend you for a wonderful summary of a challenging task indeed. I do have one question of you. I wonder if there would be value, and obviously I think there is in the nature of the way I asked the question, to indicate that one of the sort of overarching priorities would be to use, to encourage the use of the ISS and the lunar site for further biological research that will enable extended flights such as Mars and what have you. I think that was inherent in some of the subheadings that you listed, but it feels to me, at least in the United States, that does not have much traction in this country. If you look at for example, the NASA lunar planning meeting that took place in Tempe, there was nary a session on biological or medical aspects of things. And I believe that that's a real challenge, at least for those of us in the States, and I suspect it could be for our 4 other partners as well.
Yes, thank you for that comment, and I agree. And perhaps I didn't emphasize that enough in the talk, but just to reiterate, I really do see the ISS as a precious international laboratory, clearly in the U.S. Before Congress, and there has been establishment of the U.S. portion as a national laboratory. And I think there is a wonderful opportunity that we have not capitalized on well enough with respect to using that platform for testing and evaluation of promising countermeasures and technologies that will help us in going forward. Personally, I'm a great believer in it. It's one of the reasons why the slide that we have up here is put up there. So thank you. Yes, Dr. Robinson.
I would like to concur that I think your summary statements were quite excellent. I would like to encourage the group to think about a venue that could be the international venue for this sort of effort. There is currently no real major seat at the table for space medicine and all the precursor research that needs to be done. We always struggle to get a seat at the table. The discussions in the last several days talk about the after the design entrance of what we do. And so I think that as a community we need to develop a strong voice as an international voice, even though at the current state of affairs, Constellation is not an international program yet. I'm certain it will be. And so I think the opportunity is now for us to do this.
I don't know if it's a correct protocol or not for the presenter to ask a question back to a questioner, but I'll go ahead, in this risky way. And that is that, there is an inherent, there are inherent challenges, and you're quite familiar with these. Not the least of which is that we live in an engineering culture as medical individuals. So, do you have a concrete suggestions as to how the medical and biomedical community establishes a stronger and perhaps even more importantly an effective voice in this matter? Yes. Or it could just open up.
Well, I've really given this a fair amount of thought. The crack in the door. I'll talk loud. The crack in the door for me would be something that has now been established in NASA, and this is this Health and Medical Technical Authority, which today is starting to have a voice at the table, at least within NASA. And we're using that as the forum to develop standards and requirements, and we most recently are having the opportunity for our technical authority and the other two, safety and engineering, to go to the programs and say, thumbs up, thumbs down about can they move to the next stage in a program. Okay, seems to me that we should acknowledge the notion that there needs to be international standards and requirements, and we ought to create something that is analogous to that health and medical technical authority, but do it on an international level, and begin to start up front the notion of acknowledging that the multinational community will have a voice and will be the stewards of crew health and performance long term. So I think that we just need to pick the forum, but I think this notion of an international health and medical authority can be established.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Kozlovskaya.
I would like to thank you for a very good summary, but one thing which I would like to add that one of the questions which was hanging in the air during our discussion here, it is somehow fragility or even absence of real bridge between science and applications. And these things which bother all of us very much, because if you will think only about application of what is already known for today, then tomorrow we will be naked. So we have to, like the same as like in humanity, when we are parents, we take care about having children to continue our family and so on, or our names. The same in science, and maybe even more, that you will just be user of what we already obtained. That is very dangerous. We will not go further tomorrow, and therefore I think somehow it should be in the summary of mentioned in the, and even more, it was discussed all the time. It was in the air all the time that there is still lack of real connection, real programming, real joint programming of what we have today and what we have to do, what we should know tomorrow, and what should be done on the basic science part as well, and so on. What do we, how to say, if we can put the goals for basic science people, that would be good. That if we will put our priority to them, and but we will ask them to do science, real basic science, for us to be able tomorrow to use what they will attend during this their work. That will be great. And in this, also connected to this, I think that so happened that during our summit, we were concentrating on studies on human being. But actually, even on-ground studies on human being are limited, have limitations. Because when we talk about radiation, what kind of radiation studies can be and have we right to perform? So it means that we have to also to put attention about necessity of developing of animal studies platform, and in this respect, just one very small remark: when you when you list the joint project which we had in our history with project like Mirnasa or whatever, we did sign biosatellite, which was lasted for 20 years and was excellent example, model of scientific cooperation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kozlovskaya. One of the pleasures, actually, when you ask questions is that I learn probably more than sometimes I anticipate from your very thorough questions. And as you know, you and I will have an opportunity to meet and to talk further about these points. As someone who has just an absolutely wonderful job at NSBRI, clearly we are a very vested in ensuring that there is a science portfolio that is laddered out from basic science towards operations, and that there is a very strong section within our portfolio concerning animal studies, and that we very much support and encourage the involvement of end users in ensuring that those folks who are working in research and development understand where they're going and what the implications can be, but fundamentally value very much the scientific merit and importance. And I agree with you fully that that did not come out in my summary. It was implicit, but I look forward to discussing with you on these topics further. Yes.
Thank you very much again for your brilliant summary of the talk results of our conference. But as a continuation of speech of Dr. Kozlovskaya, I had focused your attention on the one problem that, according to my understanding, can be qualified as a fundamental problem of the space medicine. Yesterday we talked about the white spot, but in such scale, this problem can be qualified as a white desert. This problem concerns the combined impact of radiation and other issues of detriment of health in space flight. For understanding the scale of the problem, I can give some example. You remember from the speech of Dr. Kuchinota that at present the radiation risk is estimated as a 3% excess caused by the cancerogenic effect. If we took into account the other stochastic effect connected with the detriment of cardiovascular system, immune system, central nervous system, and other important system of body, we obtain other value of risk, 9.7. The incorrectness of our estimation equal 3 times and more than 3 times. I believe that approximately the same results can be obtained in estimation of real consequences of detriment of health in the space flight. And such provocation impact of radiation must be taken into account for estimation of the hazard, not only Mars mission, for future space exploration of mankind. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. What I tried to do, again, is just to summarize some of the main points, and as a priority right after the crew safety and preservation of the mission was radiation. And I fully agree that the non-cancer effects of radiation are extremely important. We've had discussions with NASA and with our international colleagues in this regard. From an institute level, we support work actually having to do specifically with the risks to the cardiovascular system of radiation. I think you bring up an excellent point. Thank you.
If I may, I would like to make a comment. You made an excellent summary, and I believe that today on the ISS we have an excellent example of international cooperation in medical operations. At the same time, the scientific community, the research, is done separately, independently by each nation. I believe that it will be very promising to have cooperation in research as well. And I think a significant role will lie between the interaction of agencies. That is the first comment I wanted to share, which I believe should be one of the objectives of our common understanding and the conclusion of the International Medical Group. Second statement, I really side with you when you say that when we develop new projects and manned hardware, the hardware for manned operations, we have to be involved from the medical community. We have to be involved from the very start in order to ensure that the manned hardware are designed for men, for humans, but we don't have to adapt humans for the hardware. And finally, I believe it's a very important aspect of international evaluation is to evaluate the errors, the tragedies, the failures we had in space exploration. Those lessons should be summarized as true lessons in order for us not to repeat them in the future. Not only to ensure safety of a particular space mission, but to ensure professional continuity and professional functionality of cosmonauts and astronauts. Thank you for your kind attention.
Spasibo. Thank you, Dr. Bogomolov, for your very clear and important points.
Jeff?
Sir, yeah. Oh, yes.
My comments have to do with the analog, and perhaps it was implicit in your presentation. I think when we're talking about analog, we have to expand the concept of analog sites. I think we think in terms of terrestrial analog, but from the discussion yesterday of Jeff Davis in particular, ISS could be an analog to transit. The moon can be an analog to Mars. And I think it's an important concept to represent in the summary. It's not only terrestrial analog. And perhaps it has been mentioned, but analog environments is good for research, technology demonstration, but also we learn how to explore from analog environments. And the operational aspect of using analog environments to proceed forward, I think, is an important concept to demonstrate. So it's not only science, it's not only technology demonstration, but it's a proof of concept or demonstration of concept of operations. I do believe things will change when we go to Mars, and perhaps we'll do things slightly different on Mars than we will do on the moon and so on. So those are the comments. And your summary was okay, actually.
You know,
just kidding. It was excellent.
Thank you. I mean, the environment, not just the concept, but the actual operation is, a lowly writer's desk at 2 a.m. with a candle and some tea. Thank you. I think Neil and Sam. Sure.
Just to commend Dr. Alford, Mr. Abbey, and you for putting together an absolutely fantastic meeting for me. I mean, I've learned an enormous amount here. And one of the things I see from your summary is that we really need to not let this die. Okay, this was an excellent experience, I think, for many of us. And we see what we can have in a way of power if we're working together on this. There are a lot of things that are challenges to us that are basically inherent in our agency and probably inherent in others that we need to work trying to get fixed. And I think that some recommendations ought to come from this ultimately, whether it's this meeting or a follow-on. And if we say a follow-on, I think there should be a plan as to how we're going to lead into the next phase of this and continue this action, because recommendations from this organization or from this group is a very strong constituency. It is not trivial. These are the folks who've had enormous experience in this area, have conducted research in space, have done medical operations, and see where our challenges are for the future and what we need to take care of to ensure as safe as possible, our trips to where we're going to the moon and Mars. And in addition to that, as suggested with the interspersed comments about basic research, that we as a civilization have an enormous opportunity for knowledge acquisition here that's heretofore it's unparalleled, and the kinds of things that we can discover using the environment of space and using microgravity. And that being said, I think that we ought to continue with the theme of what we want to do with regard to the exploration, but also include the knowledge opportunity that's there and how we can advance our knowledge and provide a new edge to the future by having that kind of research being done. So what I'd like to hear before we get out of here today is, what are we going to do next and who's going to do it and get it started so that we at least have some foreseeable continuity to this and be able to use this forum to make the kinds of strong recommendations needed to influence the right people for the right decisions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Pellis. Thank you for the nice comments. And with respect to planning, I think you really hit the nail on the head. The slides that I showed for the plans, future steps, was not the original draft. The original draft consisted of about 5 slides that was relatively detailed. I then realized I was either incredibly sleep deprived and or kind of getting ahead of myself. I think that it's absolutely critical to have concrete next steps. I think that we need to, however, understand that the first step has been taken in having this summit. I think the next step, we want to, first of all, assess the feedback so that we hear firsthand the international voice. There may be comments that come in that we don't expect and anticipate and can learn from. And as I put on the slide, I think to establish points of contact, I've talked to Dr. Alfred, Mr. Abbey about this. I think to have representation from each of the stakeholder nations in planning what the next activities should be going forward is a good way to go. I've had some very good discussions with individuals like Carl Deutsch and others who have done major international collaborative activities in the past. There are some tried and true ways, as I understand, of doing this, and certain things that don't work so well. So I think we have great resources within this community here to make some concrete steps. But I think the first 2 steps really need to be lessons learned from this summit, and then to engage the various nations in planning what the next steps will be. And we don't have a shortage of ideas from our side, but we want to do this in the spirit of international cooperation. Yes, Victor. Oh, sorry, Sam. Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a brief thought for you about the relationship between the space medicine community and the research community. When I joined NASA just prior to the Apollo flights, the researchers and the physicians were embedded together, and they worked diligently to mine whatever resource presented, whether it was a health problem or some interesting research which was relevant to health. That communication was incredibly valuable. I see a brief example of that now in the ultrasound work that we're doing on the International Space Station, and I think the physicians and the researchers are working closely together. I see the composition of this conference as a positive step in which you have immersed us from the space medicine community with the research community in a very positive way. As we look to the future, how can we use ISS and use it more effectively by embedding the physician, space medicine community, and the research community on special tasks to elicit relevant information for the exploration of Moon and Mars?
I think that's an excellent question. I wish I had an overarching answer for that, which I don't. But what I can try to do, however, is narrow the perspective down to NASA's institute, the National Space Biomedical Research Institute. And when I, as a physician scientist, when I was appointed as director, I think that the highest priority item that I had was to try to better integrate the medical community and the science community, having the good fortune of not only being a physician who's with many years of clinical practice experience, but also as a theoretical physicist. And I see some modest changes. I can't take all of the credit, but I think it's important to instill a spirit and a culture of being able to integrate fields together. And I would love for the NSBRI to have a more active role in seeing an increased return on NASA's investment in the Institute of products and deliverables that are emerging from absolutely fantastic world-class science that's making its way through a pipeline to be tested and validated aboard the ISS. Of course, we hit a barrier in that most of our activities are ground-based activities, and there are some obstacles that we face in moving to flight that you are perhaps, and I think indeed, much more familiar with than I am. But it's not for lack of desire or trying that we would very much like to see this happen. And I know from interactions with our chief scientist, our associate director, Dr. Jeannie Becker, our liaisons, the funded investigators in 20 states from across the country echo that voice, so I am merely the messenger. It's a great question.
As I was going to say something else, but just on this particular point, I think that a number of things need to be noted. First of all, obviously IBMP has been doing this all along, and so it's been very good to have both the medical researchers and the flight docs talking together. In terms of NASA, with the new human research program, that this has been at least initiated, if not perfected yet, and so that I'm very pleased with the with this possibility, and I'm reminded of the ISSMP program, which is certainly the start of this. In terms of my other comment, I strongly support that on a scientist-to-scientist basis that we can do a lot more, and I do appreciate the organization of being able to have the Space Medicine Summit. But I have to mention the 900-pound gorilla, and that is the national and international politics in terms of what we're allowed to do together in the past, and hopefully that this will be better. Obviously, the Baker Institute for Public Policy is an excellent place to have had this meeting. Dr. Lane and Mr. Abbey's paper on the exploration program was an excellent review of not only the program, but what could be done and how it perhaps should be changed to a more to a way that things can be done a little bit better in terms of things like that. But we scientists really need help in terms of this. We all know of the difficulties that it has been for access to space for biomedical research. We also know the difficulty that politics has played in terms of working together. We've had both the benefit and the lack of the benefit. Obviously, during the Cold War, when NASA and Russia, we were allowed to work together on the bion projects, but at other times we have been restricted, and I think that we need to have help with that regard.
Thank you. Is there, before moving on to maybe some of the other questions, is there anybody here who would like to comment on this very important point that Dr. Schneider is bringing up. Yes. Dr. Lane.
Thank you. I was wondering whether politics would come up. I apologize to everyone for missing all of the wonderful presentations and discussions at this conference. I know without reading the sheets that it was an excellent conference just based on your contributions and your interest. I see something that's missing in our current discussions internationally for reasons I think are obvious. I see missing a celebration of the accomplishment of the ISS. It was an extraordinary international effort. It was, I remember with great pride, I mean, the first part of the ISS went up when I was in the White House, I suppose. It was due to the Russian contribution, which of course was very large to the entire effort of the International Space Station. This has been an extraordinary achievement in my view. It's the largest high technology project ever involving the United States, certainly, and I think many of our partners. I doubt we could even do it today, given the current political situation. But I think that's irrelevant. What I would like to see, just following on your wonderful comments and suggestions, is a continuous involvement of this community, and maybe a little bit wider community, including the science, perhaps even more visibly. And I think that might be a series of meetings. You'll explore mechanisms, better than I do, what will actually function best here. But it cannot be a government activity, because at least in my country, our space program right now is coping with what I would gently describe as a top-down vision for space exploration. We may all like parts of it or not. That's just a reality of where we are right now. So I think much of the problem that one sees in priority setting is because we have this high-level vision out here. NASA and the rest of our space community in this country are trying to cope with this challenge, but the budgets are really unrealistic for meeting the objectives. So there's a lot of pushing and pulling and inconsistencies that you see here and there that look like they make no sense. Well, if you've lived in the White House, they make a lot of sense. That's just how things work. So constructively, what I really want to say is I think the non-government community, or I should say the larger community, including all our government people and really need to move this forward in a way that gets all these important issues out and analyzed and discussed and prioritized in a way that doesn't fly in the face of any of our government plannings. Because if this series of conferences or other activities simply complain about the U.S. program or the Russian program or the UK program, we'll do a disservice, I think, to our colleagues who are working in government, and it also won't lead to a positive outcome. I think we can have it both ways, but I think the leadership is going to have to be carried by the community outside of government and then done intelligently in such a way that all of our agency people, NASA and Space Agency in Europe and so forth, can be fully participating without worrying about their own, say, political problems back home. I think that can be done. I think it's been done successfully in the past here. But whatever we're doing and whenever we're doing it, we really need to be proud of the accomplishments of the space station and talk about the opportunities with the space station in the future, recognizing that right now there's some political barriers to doing what we might want to do, and we've just got to be realistic and adult in figuring out how to have those discussions so that we don't inadvertently cause ourselves problems down the road. Sorry, it's kind of a ramble, but I do feel strongly about it, and I appreciate the opportunity to comment.
Right. Well, we appreciate your comments very much. Yes, Carl Deutsch.
Yeah, I just have one comment, Jeff. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sure. Okay, Jeannie, why don't you go ahead, and then we'll come back. Okay.
All right. I know one of the biggest challenges in following up to such a successful conference is follow-up itself. And we have an opportunity here because the Aerospace Medical Association is meeting beginning next Saturday, and also the Space Medicine Association. And the president of both of those organizations has been a participant in this conference, although neither of them are here right now. Richard Jennings is the president of the Aerospace Medical Association, and John Clark is the president of the Space Medicine Association. And if there's any way that proceedings or a summary could be gathered together in time for that meeting, I think we could call upon both of them to promulgate the suggestions and the theme of this summit to that organization. I also wanted to follow up on Victor's comments that I think it is very important that this message go from the attendees of this conference up through the proper channels of each agency. Because as we've discussed, and Nessa has pointed out so eloquently, we can do very successful collaborative science. And I was a part of NASA MIR as well, and we worked very hard and had lots of successes and included space medicine in those activities. But it is not without the support of the agencies, because the agencies are how you get crew time and how you get guaranteed crew participation in those experiments.
That's great. If we could have, Carl down here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your summary, and thank you to everybody participating for the enriching comments that we're having. One of the things that struck me is that human exploration is about humans succeeding in a new environment, psychologically, physiologically, and doing a lot of things that engineers want to do as well. And to some extent, I have a great regret that in a meeting of this nature, there were not a large number of program managers associated with the space exploration programs to listen to some of the concerns. I think one of the findings that should be coming out of this particular meeting is that the whole aspect of space medicine preparation, the human in that exploration environment, is absolutely central and should be the driver for many of the designs of the program of this nature, an exploration program of this nature. And that the people who are represented in this group do in fact need to be central in establishing requirements that the engineers will very successfully meet once those requirements are understood. So I think it is imperative that the community work together to identify where they wish to establish requirements and establish processes where those requirements could get right into the program design early rather than later. I do believe that the program managers of all nations would welcome that sort of input, because it is, of course, the rationale of exploration to make sure that life can continue to be supported in this very harsh environment that we're entering. There have been a lot of comments about coordination and activity, and as I sort of mentioned a couple of days ago, over the governments representing over half of the world's population now wish to participate in space exploration. That's a lot of humanity that is interested. We need to find a mechanism where we as a species can move forward, and that includes coordination mechanisms amongst various nations, and sometimes it'll be very loose for the very political reasons that we've mentioned, but it must happen because this is an adventure of humanity. And I would like to ensure or ask that the summary really capture this essence, this essential part of what human space exploration is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nick, you have a
Dr. I'd like to also echo some things that are said. I think this has been a wonderful meeting. I'd like to thank Bobby Alford and George Abbey for arranging just a fabulous meeting. In thinking about this meeting, it's an opportunity for scientists, agency personnel, and people involved, and astronauts, a lot of them, to show up and to interact with each other, and it's been wonderful. Thinking about the essence of the meeting makes me think about some of the things that have been said, and I'll try and be adult about it. That the issue here is we have in this room international participation, and we have scientists talking about science that they have done sometimes in space in the context of astronauts and agency folks. And it occurs to me that those might be two recommendations or two lead-off premises for any report that goes forward. And I'll leave it up to you and other more diplomatic and wiser people than I in the politics of the thing, that perhaps a strong statement might be made that encourages the agencies to consider again what we've been doing in MIR and in the ISS in the good old days, which is to encourage the opportunities for international collaboration and research. And I'm speaking as a researcher primarily now, and to encourage the use of space platforms like the ISS and the Moon as research platforms. Now, these are not novel ideas. They're ideas whose time has come and is going. And I'm thinking it'd be nice if we could lead off with those two principles with any report that this group perhaps, or a consensus or something that pushes the idea of international collaboration in space in terms of research, and also the fact that we have opportunities as well as simulations to do work again in a bigger way than currently is happening on the space station, and that somehow the resources be found to do this. Might be a good outcome of this meeting. We can't control, I'm old enough to know, and I worked for the VA for 31 years, you can't control the government agencies, and it's not our job, not my job, but it is my job to say this is the issue at my level, and this is what affects me and how I see the world. And I think it'd be quite appropriate for us to make a statement that the way we see the world is international collaboration has been harmed and the research enterprise has been weakened. And we'd like to see it go back for the sake of what we're all trying to do here. So maybe those two areas could be addressed in a strong lead-off statement somehow in any recommendations that go forward.
Yeah, those are great and wise comments.
Is that adult enough?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll tell you how I really feel later.
And Judy, I know you got a comment. It's probably a feedback to that one. Okay. Jeff, if I could, I'd like to cover just two items. And the first, I'd like to talk about the research. I represent both the research and the project management as well as some of the education. I'm flanked by two very fine educators here on either side. So let me start with the research piece. I know that both at the Johnson Space Center and NASA is preparing for a look forward of new research. I know that the NSBRI is beginning or posturing with us to prepare to look for new research. And I now look down the aisle there at Mike Duncan, and I reflect on something that I always seek from my physicians and flight surgeons and so forth, and that is if I could ask that community, the medical community, to establish those ideas in the essence of the human body and what's changing to it, to give our research teams that operation relevant components would help us drive our research calls. I reflect right now on something that I have struggled with over the last year in our cardiovascular team in trying to bring together and a very integrated cardiovascular effort that hopefully we will get started. It will be multinational. and it should be very relevant to our physicians. So ops relevance, medical operation relevance in our research is key, and I think our MMOP could help us in that arena for any of our fields that we're going to go forward on. Let me go right down into ops because it's so exciting. Each time I listen to Sachs and Pettit and their Russian cosmonaut colleague that landed somewhere where they weren't supposed to land, and then report on the importance and the value of doing that. I have mentioned many times in private conversations, is there anything wrong with every landing that we have in Kazakhstan in the future? Why can't we let them be quiet for 4 to 6 or 8 hours and let them be there, and we could watch them from afar and give them those scenarios of setting camp, doing their contingencies, crawling out of that capsule, whatever it requires. It gives us a peek at what might happen on Mars when there's nobody to help them. It really, I look at it and I say, that's got to be pretty cheap. That's got to be something we could actually do and cost very, very little, and give us all pride that we're looking at what happens to those humans when they're out there all by themselves. So I propose that to the international community. I hope we do that. On the education side, man, everything this room does connects back into education. I know with my colleagues right here that it's primary school through postdoctoral and lifelong learning. That's education. It doesn't stop. You cannot have gaps. You must have all pieces. Now, we're probably not going to have is all the education we'd love to have, but I think as an international community, I bet if I went into any one of these international partners, we do already have educational pieces. I would ask that we strive to set up a committee, a group, an international team that allows us to bring our content together, check the languages, check the philosophies of education in each of those nations, and start pulling some of these pieces together. Why do I say do it in that way? Because once again, very expensive. And most of us do not have a lot of money to drop down onto these programs, but we each in our own programs could bring them together. So again, that's an educational team I would propose. I know that Neil Pellis has highlighted a piece for Jeff Davis and at Johnson Space Center to do a 20-year strategic plan. I know these two folks on either side of me in NSPRI have always had a very fine educational package that goes primary school through postdocs. So I think that, again, we're rich in our individual resources. We just need to know how to pool them and have that team to do it in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I actually just wanted to make 2 points on the 3 issues that you brought up. The first is that I agree fully that the education and outreach really is an international issue and a wonderful area that we can cooperate on. I had the good fortune when I was in Moscow last November at the U.S.-Russian joint working group to present the education and outreach efforts that NSBRI is engaged in to Dr. Grigoriev and colleagues, and I think that there is a real bilateral understanding of and recognition of the importance of this. The other point that I wanted to address has to do with engagement of the users early on. This is something that one can take action on. We're very fortunate that the NSBRI created a user panel that Leroy Chow, who was a speaker last evening, chairs. Mike Duncan has a seat on that. We solicit the users right from the get-go as to what strategic needs they have that are of high priority, and that gets factored in. We've had discussions within the user panel as to whether or not this should be also an international group, and that we should look beyond our borders as to what are the overarching needs based on a much more broad picture from the medical community, and we look forward to pursuing this. Yes, Larry. Dr. Young.
Thank you. I'd like to return to the comments brought up by Dr. Canis, by Dr. Schneider, and others. But first, I want to add my appreciation to the efforts of Dr. Alford and Mr. Abbey, along with you, Jeff, and the NSBRI. This is quite an extraordinary meeting, and I'm sure we're all grateful for the opportunity to go and discuss things at a high level and openly in a way that's all too uncommon. Nick and Victor and Dave Longenecker brought up the issue which we cannot avoid noticing, and that is that there is a lack of connection between the desire expressed, for example, by Sampool to tie our research efforts to address these major problems with the clinical medical problems, to do more research in space. Where is the lack of connection? Well, look for a moment at what Dr. Longenecker said. Where is life sciences in lunar science? We were not at the table at this meeting in Tempe, Arizona. It's by no means clear to what extent the life sciences community will be able to achieve our goals of using the moon as a Mars analog according to the current plans. It can be fixed, but it doesn't seem to be above the horizon of the people who identify themselves as space scientists. Look for a moment at the station. I, along with a number of others in this room, have been on advisory committees since the 1970s on the scientific and application uses of the space station. And all of those reports from the NASA task forces, from the National Academy of Sciences reports, all identify some common facilities and common goals. Use of animals for long-duration flight to supplement the shorter duration experiments carried out with human subjects. Use of a 1G centrifuge as a control and for exploration of partial gravity and so on. What's happened with it? A great deal of money was invested in building the centrifuge accommodation module done by our Japanese colleagues, and it will sit on the ground. What is happening now in the station? We're all aware of the fact that basic science in our area is essentially cut off at the knees. We should not be talking about the station as though this were its funeral. The station is still a youth being built, and my hope is that coming out of this community, we can express the desire to turn around the current research objectives in the station and try to go and get experiments done, recover the kinds of opportunities that are available on the station, and recognize that there is. I try to say this in an adult matter. There is a competition for resources, but let us state our priorities.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I would like to add to what has been said already, and I would also like to add a very important group to the list that you are identifying. Now, the first point I would like to make is that I direct life sciences at the Canadian Space Agency. This is the first time I've been to a medical meeting. I have been to general meetings with our flight surgeon director of operational space medicine and the astronaut office, but I've never been to a specific meeting. And so if there's a disconnect between the life sciences and the clinical needs, I think that is one place where we can see it. You've talked about the MMOP and all these other boards, but you haven't talked about one of the oldest, the International Space Life Science Working Group. And that international bed rest study that was so successful actually came from that group. So I'd ask you to add them to your list. And I'd also ask for that group to be added because one of the purposes, there was a comment made that managers don't always get together. The International Space Life Science Working Group is a place where there is candid discussion and there's actually a pooling of resources. So we actually determine how to best work together. And there are some, for various reasons, political and others, there are some very important agencies that are unfortunately not members at this time. But I think that the ISLSWIG has been an example of a very, very successful international collaboration. And the second point I'd like to make is that we've heard in how sometimes the researchers are not meeting the clinical needs and operational needs. But again, this is the first time I've been to a medical meeting. And I have to say that sometimes we are working as life scientists on problems, and then we find out that the clinicians are going, well, no. I mean, this is particularly where I'd like to say that Anessa is fantastic, because sometimes we'll be talking about these things and she'll say, well, no, we solved that 15 years ago, or we already know what to do about that. And so I think that the disconnect is not, I'd like to stress, only one way. That the clinicians, sometimes for reasons of confidentiality or for protection, or also to maintain their relationship with astronauts, do not often talk to the researchers. So I'd like to say that it's not just a one way, but that I hope this is the start of a more active dialogue between the life scientists and the clinical groups, so that when you talk about the MMOP and all these groups, you also include ISLSWIG naturally, and that we have a greater discussion between these two groups.
Thank you.
Jeff, I'd like to add a comment that I really think that what we're doing here is part of the leading edge of the peaceful global use of space. And I think we should keep that in mind. And using that sort of as the premise, I would like to say that as we think about forward work, we need to think about what is the neutral site, I don't know how else to word it, the neutral site for hosting such a global effort of scientists and clinicians. One. And two, I would encourage us that as we have proceedings from this meeting and future meetings, that when we publish it and we disseminate it, we do it beyond our discipline border. Okay, because we are very much, we like to say in the United States, we're preaching to the choir. I think all of us believe the same, and there's a lot of energy around moving this forward. But one of the things that we've said is that the government agencies with whom we interact or whom we are part of have not embraced this yet. And so that we have got to have a way to disseminate this information beyond our discipline area publications.
Right, good point. Yes, Helen.
Thank you. I was really thrilled to be invited, and I've had a wonderful experience here. I guess I'm a real practical person, and I appreciate all the comments, but I'd like to get back to Mr. Lane's comments about the international. And you had Scott Horwitz here, and I would propose that you put together a very short summary of what you think this international community should be. It might be an outgrowth of ISLSWIG, something like this with the medical doctors, and present it to the U.S. agency. And Scott Horwitz is the right one to present to. I would just go to the top. And then I think that the proposal to have the astronauts come back and then be studied further, astronauts off the International Space Station, astronauts and cosmonauts off the International Space Station, and then be studied further as if they were coming to Mars. That has been proposed for many years, but nobody's ever acted on it. It might be a nice place to start the international discussion and to see if we're going to have other international astronauts on the space station. That might be a good way to start this off. It would be hard. I don't know what the ground-based facilities should be for them to do. Maybe it should be like Chuck suggested, or maybe some kind of hab module someplace in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what it should be. Certainly our Russian counterparts have done a lot of chamber studies and isolation studies. They probably have some good ideas. So that might be a sort of proposal to take forward. And then also the idea of the lunar medical program, I think, is another one. I think you could put together, at least for the U.S., what you want in terms of international, and start forging these relationships. And the last comment, I agree about China and India. I don't know why they couldn't come here. I mean, that's certainly above my pay grade. But I do would like to see maybe the Baker Institute, since NASA can't do it, other folks to begin to encourage that relationship. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comments, and we do want to encourage that relationship as well. We're approaching the end of the session. We have time, perhaps, for one last question.
Yeah, I have three things to add here that bear on consideration. And the first thing is that there's been mention that the space sciences has had extensive meetings in regards and have had a lot of inclusion with regard to the lunar architecture design for the research platform. At the request of the NASA Advisory Council Chair, Jack Schmidt, we've been asked to actually address that same question with regard to human life biomedical research. And Dr. Longenecker here has been very instrumental in getting that moved forward. And so we are presently moving toward having that enclave, and it's not fully structured yet, and it doesn't have a complete charter yet, but it will. And this will all take place probably within the next 8 to 10 weeks that this will be completed. So we will have had some stake in the sand with regard to that. So we're not totally out of the picture there. The second thing is that there's a second consideration that we have to look at. Indeed, basic research has been hit hard in the new vision and the way we've restructured. But in addition to that hit, we have now had new impetus to go out and work together in new levels of partnership with the other agencies that are doing relevant research that would be of interest and of use to NASA. And we are just in the final stages of a memorandum of understanding between the two agency administrators, between NIH and NASA, to go ahead and formulate that, to put it together, to get our researchers to be able to work and collaborate together. And we can go into detail on that sometime if anybody wants to know the details of that, but I think that's a big move. That's agency number one. We've had an interagency meeting where about 5 or 6 different agencies were represented, all expressing interest in this new type of partnership for complementary capabilities. There's probably not going to be a lot of money going across the table. At first, I think most of it right now is to build a partnership. The last thing that I have to say is that in addition to all of this, we're trying very hard to work with some requests from congressional types for formulating a kind of a white paper strategy of how it would be if you could use the International Space Station, the U.S. segment, as a national laboratory and get it national laboratory classification. That brings with it proposals for things that we hadn't heretofore thought about, and that is that normally NASA has been funding a lot of research that's not necessarily exploration related, no longer doing that. Will the relevant agencies for those kinds of disciplines be afforded new authority, that's new money, to be able to actually sponsor and conduct that research outside the management of NASA, but using the NASA facilities? That's a very novel concept, carries with it a number of challenges. We can go through what those are, but these are real steps toward trying to ameliorate some of the real gaps that we have that we were talking about.
Well, thank you so much. I think we really appreciate those comments. They're very insightful. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I think that discussions clearly should continue, but I want to thank you very much for your attention. And Dr. Alford, I turn the program back to you and Mr. Abbey for any closing comments that you would care to make.
Just for a moment. I'm sorry, I don't have We were looking for appropriate time for express the gratitude of our Russian delegation to the organizer of this summit. And it is gratitude for everything, for the invitation, for the hospitality, for all the care which we felt during preparation for this trip to here, and which we felt here during this meeting, and also for giving us chance to participate in such I would say extremely interesting and extremely important discussion, which we consider as the first step toward integration of scientists and medical community, and the integration and cooperation of scientists and medical community from all over the world. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and wish to extend thanks to the entire Russian delegation, and also to all of our international friends who've traveled to come and join us. I know that we are so thrilled when we travel to your countries that we also receive such gracious hospitality. So thank you, Dr. Alford.
Jeff, thank you. You've carried on really the tradition of this summit and having a very interactive communication and I think that's been great. It has the momentum here that was started when we began with that very first panel, which was moderated by Carl Deutsch, has been sustained, and in fact, I think it has gained greater momentum as we've gone along. And there's great spirit here, and we mustn't lose it, and we're going to do everything that we possibly can not to lose it. We appreciate all of the participants, and we appreciate the interest that has been shown in this. Last night I said something, and I really afterwards felt somewhat badly because I failed to at least let our guests know how broadly this summit has been structured in terms of its representation. As Jeff's last slide shows here, the multinational aspect of it, the sincere and serious commitment that the international partners have given to this has been very gratifying, very important. It would not have been successful without it. And the fact that NASA didn't stay away. Mr. Abbey's going to have the last word here. You know, it was Anatoly Grigoriev who was supposed to have the final concluding remarks, and I hope you'll convey to him that we tried to do what he might have done, although we could never do it as well as he could do it. You know, when this started and we had the idea, and Mr. Abbey and I were talking about it, it was almost 2 years ago, I guess, and we sort of sent it out as a little trial balloon, and you'd be amazed what we were kind of told as feedback. And it's very inconsistent with what's happened here. The feedback, the kind of concerns and worries and what we could do and what we couldn't do and all that sort of thing. And over time, that has been totally washed away. And then this particular summit has demonstrated how far off that kind of worry that some people had about it. And I'm talking about government, and I'm talking about agency, and reality. But in fact, those things were wiped away with a little perseverance and a few communications, and fortunately we were not impeded in any way by any of those things, and that's great. I particularly am very gratified. As you probably noticed, I've been taking a lot of notes, and we will put something together, and we will follow and not let this momentum stop, and be patient with us. We may not be able, Jeannie, to get it by next week, but we'll do our best to get it as soon as possible. And we'll want your input into it once we begin to put it together. And with that, Mr. Abbey, you have the final word.
Well, I think it's been very gratifying to me and to Bobby as well, the response of all of you at this summit. I think you raised some, excellent points, and we've had some very good interactive discussions, and that's what we were looking for. You have all made, I think, some outstanding points and come up with some very good recommendations, and we need to consider all these and look at how we can best proceed. The issues that you have brought up, I think, are critical to the future of human spaceflight, and if we're going to solve them, we need to do that together and do it internationally. I think we have already proven that we can work together and achieve a great deal when we cooperate together, and we've been proving that and have proved it on Mir and on the International Space Station. So as we look to the future, I think there is a lot of uncertainty as to where we're going, even though somebody has come up with a vision, but a vision and then following a road to get there are often not the same. And so we need to lay out a path and that does lead to the future, because it's critical to us all. And I think we have made the point, I think, from the beginning of the summit, and certainly Leroy Chow made it very well last evening, that if we're going to proceed, we need to do it with international cooperation. And with the uncertainties that exist in the program, We need to make use of the International Space Station, make use of the resources we have at hand, and we can best do that together. So I think we need to continue the momentum that we've got established here, and look at how we can best proceed, because we shouldn't lose this moment and lose this opportunity. But we'll only do it together. And so I really thank you for your participation, and I look forward to continuing this process and working together in the future to make human spaceflight a reality for all of us and for the future of the young people of the world. So thank you all for coming, and as Bobby says, we'll try to get the results of this meeting out to all of you, publish the proceedings, and also make the record of it visually and with audio available to you as well, because that will be available to you. So we'll get that out to you, and then look at how we can best take advantage of this forum and proceed, as Neil Lane has said, to look at making our voices heard in the future. So thank you all, and I appreciate everything that you've done in coming out early on a Sunday morning, and you continued to have that same interaction that we had starting on Friday morning. So keep it up. It's important to us all.